will now call our budget workshop session in order. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Reverend Mack. So this is the budget workshop associated with the second reading of the budget.
Okay.
Dr. President, is doing unconnected. You connected? We're ready to start.
I am connected now, sorry.
Okay, all right. So the approach I have this afternoon is a short PowerPoint presentation that's comprised of four parts. The first part is to simply reiterate the goals that we're working towards and how we're approaching the budget. The lead of the presentation associated with the options for first reading of the budget was being adopted. Ask questions of staff.
Stop, I'm sorry, either my hearing is going badly, which is probably what it is, thank you. Thank you, because I want to hear everything you have to say.
So is this better?
Yes.
All right, so to begin with, in this slide here, I think I've presented in each of my presentations this year, the board priorities associated with the budget, the budget linked to these priorities, the CCSD promise that's being developed, academic improvements, recovery from COVID, talent development, phase 5 capital programs, and communication. Next slide, please. So the strategy that we use, to finance and development budget each year to maximize revenue, prioritize expenditure needs, obviously balance the budget as the state statutory requirement, maintain fund balance at or above board policy of 16.67%, which is a financial improvement thing to do, and then minimize tax increases to the public to the greatest extent possible. Next slide. Primary budget assumptions at this point, the 3% increase in assessed property values here locally that drives local revenue. In the first reading of the budget, a 3.4 mil increase that could change depending on board decision for the second reading. I would like to state again from last workshop that we have a reduction in base food costs from the state this year. A decrease from $833 down to $812. That's a reflection of the state funding formula. The base student cost varies amount of each student is allotted in the state as $2,500 based on the formula. And so we only pick up this coming year $812 at $2,500. So that estimated impact on our revenues. Projected enrollment decrease from 21 to 22. So last year when we developed fiscal year 21 budget, this was at least the enrollment projections were not prior to the pandemic. And then so when school opened in the fall, our numbers were less than what were projected. And our projections this year for the upcoming budget year was still lower than what we were last winter last year when we projected. And then the last item here is that as the finance team, as we've done our financial analysis, we've taken a look at where we think the year in 21 is in, and use some of that as the basis for development of the budget for fiscal year 22. Next slide. So this is a slide that talks about salary adjustments. So before I get into the numbers, talk a little bit about process. So in making a recommendation to the full board, It starts obviously with the finance team, my finance team and I, we do our appropriate financial analysis. And we take into consideration a number of factors, some which I just presented on a couple slides ago. We're looking at the fiscal impact long-term for the district. We're looking at the impact on the taxpayer. And we're taking a look at the impact on classrooms as well as on our employee group. So based on those factors and the analysis that we do, I come up with a recommendation that I take to the postal rate into her cabinet. We discuss that, and then if there's no changes to that, but even if there are changes, we come up jointly as a cabinet on the recommendation that we want to take to the Audit and Finance Committee. So that's the process to getting it to the Audit and Finance Committee. It's a recommendation. The Audit and Finance Committee then takes that recommendation, set of recommendations, and they do their deliberations, using the factors that they need to think about, certainly taking into consideration my financial analysis that I present to them for the full year. And then they can either accept my recommendation or the staff recommendation, or they can make adjustments to their recommendation. So this year, which has happened in the past, this year, the Audit and Finance Committee meeting in the month of June, the salary recommendation that I made, that staff made, that included a 3.4 bill increase, is to take the non-teaching staff to 95% mark, 95% mark. And that's given the fact that in the fall of last year, that the Audit and Finance Committee and board had directed that we should, for fiscal year 22, we should go to 98% mark. So my recommendation is less than that 98%, 3.4 bill. And so in the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, in general, the committee deliberated on that. They elected to recommend to the board, that we should actually go to 98% of market. So since then, I've done an additional analysis, and I'm going to present that analysis to you all as options. So the first two pieces of that process, the staff and finance staff engagement with the analysis and engagement with the cabinet, step one, step two, by the Audit and Finance Committee. I consider those work as relatively easy part of the three-part process. The third and more difficult process is the decision by the school board. So before that point, all things that's happened is that being presented to you are recommendations, and then you then have the responsibility to deliberate on those recommendations and make a decision. That's where we are today. So I want to present what some of those options are. I think the options that we have. So that's what this slide lays out. So what we've done at the top, I'm sorry, go back one, please. So what we've done at the top half of this slide, we have selected 5 employee groups: food services operator, secretary, bookkeeper, manager, director, and executive director. And we take a look at each of those employee groups with FY21 salary. At step 15, so the question is why step 15 versus step 5 or step 29? We just have to have some place to do the analysis and make the presentation. And so halfway between a step from step 0 to step 30, we selected 15 as an example. And then we looked at in 3 different options, 95% of market with a step. And so that was what was presented to the Audit and Finance Committee that represents the 3.4 mil increase for fiscal year 22. And so you can see those numbers there in the variances. The food service operator with increased salary was increased by $1,300. Secretary bookkeeper by almost $2,600. And we did the same thing in the middle section here, where it says 95% of market with the step, which is the same as the previous one. with an addition of 1.2%. In the way, the 1.2% COLA was selected, it is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index that was given to the district, by the state, which comes from the, Board of Economic Advisors. So under Act 388, each school district each year in the state of South Carolina receives, what their amount to their allowable millage, the maximum that they can, use for that particular year. Unless there's been something that some portion that's been unused for prior years. And so that allowable millage is comprised of two factors, the CPI and the population, change in population in the local jurisdiction. And so for Charleston, the CPI that we were given was 1.2%. So, so the choice was to go with the 1.2% COLA, reflecting the CPI in this option here. And you can see then, for those employee groups at the top of the slide, then that will take each of those groups to 96.1% of market. And then the final section at the top is given a 98% of market with a step to, so by the way, I'm sorry, the middle one, 1.2% COLA is across the board. So that will be teachers, non-teachers, all permanent employees. And the last option here, 98% of market, is 98% that would increase salaries for non-teachers only, so it has no impact on teachers. So teachers in that scenario would not receive a COLA. Now at the bottom here, bottom half, it shows the bachelor's teacher, a teacher with a bachelor's, a teacher with a master's degree, and a teacher with a doctorate degree, and what their salaries would be in those, under those same scenarios at step 15 in the end. You see fiscal year 21 over the left what those salaries are. In the middle, 95% of market. What that does then is it simply takes the teachers to ask for $1,000 that the state has indicated in this budget that the teachers across the state would receive, so $1,000. So in that instance, there's no COLA and no calculation to move them to some specific percentage of market. The only thing that is the additional $1,000. So if you're a teacher, a first year teacher, and your salary is, whatever it is, $40,000, the next year you get paid $41,000. Third year teacher, your salary is $70,000, and you get $71,000. So the percentage increase for a more experienced teacher would be much less than a percentage increase for a less experienced teacher. So because there's no COLA added there. The second section, 95% of market with the step in 1.2% COLA. In this particular scenario, teachers then would receive, in addition to that $1,000, a 1.2% COLA. And you can see the differences there in salaries. And if you go back for a second to the 95% market, the section with teachers, you can see that currently teachers have for bachelor's 102.4% market. Then for the next two, 101.6% of market. With the COLA in the middle section, then those percentages of market increase as shown here, 103.6 and 102.8. And that's simply because we've added in that option the 1.2% COLA that will be applied to all permanent district employees. And the last section here for 98% market is those numbers are the same as the first section for teachers because there's no COLA added. So in that instance, non-teachers would receive 98% of the market, and teachers would not have a COLA increase, although again we receive $1,000. And the last point I'll make on this particular slide is at the bottom left-hand corner, where it shows the dollar amount. So if we were to move from 3.4 mil and do 98% of market for non-teachers, that would cost 1.8 mil, $5.2 million. So $5.2 million in addition to what's in the first reading of the budget, which equates to 1.8. With the other option, the middle option, with 1.2% total for all eligible employees, then that millage would be 1.7, just slightly less than the 1.8, roughly $5 million. Next slide, please. So as a consideration for the board, again, as I indicated earlier, there's different approaches that different staff members, audit finance, and some of the board members are considering. And so this is one potential approach to, over time, to get us to where we think our employee should be. So in the first block there, school year 21, 22, so it's fiscal year 22, the budget we're working on. So we already have in the first reading of the budget to move the maximum step increase for teachers to 26. So right now, teachers max out at step 25. Once they move beyond step 25, they do not receive a step increase once they have, I believe it's that point in the year. So for fiscal year 22, we're adding one step to step 26. So a person at that level, a teacher at that level will in fact receive a step increase this coming year. For the proposal here is that down the same column as the step increase, to increase the step, one step each year for the next 4 years after fiscal year 22 until we reach step 30. And so that means then once we reach that point, I think the board directs this consideration. Then in fiscal year 26, all teachers would receive a step increase up to step 30. And the last column to the right here, we get the non-teaching staff to 100% of market. This consideration here would add 1.2% COLA to all employees. That would take non-teachers to 96% of market in fiscal year 22. And then we would follow suit as we would do with the teacher staff, who would add 1 percentage point each year until we get to fiscal year 26. That will give us to 98% of market. So that's another option for our consideration. With the current first reading of the budget, the 3.4 million increase, the revenue impact is a $10 million additional revenue coming from local taxpayers. The 1.67 million increase, which would be the consideration of the option I just reviewed on the previous slide, be $5 million. Again, if we were to go to 98% of market without, for just non-teachers, then that millage increase would be 1.8. I don't show it here, but it would be 1.8, and that's actually $5.2 million. But in this particular option here, if we add 7, it would total of 5.1 million, which is then at the bottom, the table at the bottom there shows the impact to the hypothetical taxpayer, where it says 3.4 million increase. Those numbers are presented to you all before. So for owner occupied, which is done in this table, an owner occupied person who owns the house and lives in would pay no taxes in the general operating fund, the zero impact. For a non-owner occupied, someone that's renting a property, as the property owner was renting, that property owner would on assessed property value for every $100,000, that person would pay $20.46 in additional taxes for fiscal year 22. y'all what I'm saying this year. And now, if we to increase it to 5.1 mil, that would go from $20.04 to $30.60. Commercial, real property, assessed property value for every $500,000 of assessed property value with a 3.4 mil increase. The additional amount that will be paid in taxes for that taxpayer is $102. And then that goes to $153 if the village is increased to 5.1. So that concludes the second section. I'm going to go to the third section, and then we'll get to the fourth section, which is so what's the impact if we were to use the option that I laid out as consideration of 1.2%? That's what this section right here shows. First reading, it shows that our revenues were local revenues. $9 million. Because of the additional 1.7 in village. So the village is currently the 3.4. If the board were to elect across the board 1.2. So that would add this $4.9 million to local revenue in the sector. The expenditures coming down, the expenditures will go up slightly less than that. Slightly less than this is the actual amount of the cost, but the taxes are calculated match. And so we would actually generate more revenue, $2,148 more in revenue. So this village rate generates the dollars, what the expenditure costs are. The next slide. Oh, sorry. So the slide is on the screen is one adjustment over. Yeah, that's one adjustment over. The next slide then just takes the first reading of the budget book that the same information that's been presented to the board these 2 or 3 times, and then just shows the variances. There aren't real variances. So the revenue variance we just talked about on the preceding slide. Next slide, please. These expenditure requests here, there are no changes here. Next slide. The next change, slide 11. The only change here in terms of expenditures would be the 1.2% total for all staffers, as shown here. I think so that's the only change. I want to point something out. Coming down towards the bottom of this page, the third line from the bottom, it says finance show that's $298,000 is an increase of 2 FTE. There's a question of what is that? It's been generated by the funding, by the indirect rate that's applied to federal grants, so applied to the ESSER funds. So it's 2 positions. It's the newly created deputy CFO position, and then it is also a new finance position. That new finance position is intended to help manage all this ESSER dollars that right now we have $100 billion under $100 million in total federal revenues that are coming in through Title 1 and that sort of thing. And so this adds another $229 million to that, so there's a lot more to manage. So we need to have someone to manage that. Next slide, please. And the last adjustment here, in this particular option, is simply showing the decrease in use of common balance, as I talked about in this result. And the last slide is the fourth component of the discussion here of the presentation, which is questions and discussion. So with that, no questions.
Okay, you just heard the report from the CFO. Are there any questions on the
Yes, if you're saying next steps of motion for the second reading, that would be on June 28th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I just want to point out, so one of the reasons to look at a full increase across the board was that veteran teachers don't get a step from this previous year. But this next year, they will get a step increase because we're going to 26, correct?
So, just one second. All right, so I'm saying, question here. So you're saying, go back to slide 10 for me, thank you, please. So at the very top here, where it says, teachers step, mandated by the state. So in fiscal year 22, the teachers will receive a step. In 21, the current fiscal year, teachers receive a step and they receive a 2% COLA. And so in the first reading of the budget, for 22, teachers receive a step, but they do not receive a COLA.
Right, but all of the teachers are going to get a step next year because you're increasing the step from 25 to 26 years.
So
Even the veteran teachers would normally get a step, correct?
So the teachers that are at 27, above 26 do not get a step, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Why not? They only be getting the amount allowed to 25 years. Why wouldn't they get that step for 26 years?
Well, a teacher with 26 would, but the teacher that's 26 this year, that'll be 27 next year, would not get a step.
Really?
So
Because we didn't approve the 26 year until next year's budget.
So Dr. French, if we adjust step 26, then you are correct. Teachers 27 forward would see that adjustment, that increase.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to point out that even if we don't go with the COLA option, those veteran teachers will still see an increase because they'll get a new step. And I'm a little concerned that the option that you outlined today with your really good analysis is not the option that came out of audit and finance, which was a 98% increase, 98% market with a 1.8% millage increase. I don't understand why you wouldn't have presented that as the baseline for our discussion today, since the Audit and Finance Committee appeared to approve that unanimously.
So on slide 5, I do look at the 98% of market rate, the other finance is the last section on like 98% of market, with the step. And so that shows the same analysis as the 95% market with step and 95% market step and 1.2% cover. We use the same employee group. Then at the bottom left-hand corner, it talks about what the cost would be to do that, which is the 1.8 mil, which is, it's $700,000 less than 1.5 mil. So essentially the same amount.
I understand that, but going forward from that, you don't present that as the variance for the budget. You present the 1.7 million increase instead. You also present the salary adjustment that takes us even further away to getting 100% market for a non-teacher employee. We were supposed to be on track to do that this year, and that my understanding is that we're going to delay it a year because of COVID and other considerations, but now you're saying we're not going to get to 100% of market for non-teaching salaries until 25, 26. It was clear that the members of the Audit and Finance Committee felt that we are not competitive enough to retain talent, and that they were highly concerned that people actually come up for CCSD just to learn how to do the job and then move on. So I feel like we should be strongly considering that, and it's frustrating to me that it's been presented this way.
I think, over the last, several weeks, the only option that, has not been presented is this 1.2% COLA. So I don't have to talk about looking right now, but I think we have already presented the 98%. We've been the first round of board workshop where we had 3 different scenarios but certainly, we can, I have those numbers at another call. We have 3 of those questions.
You talked about it today, the additional steps for the teachers. You just out of curiosity, do other districts in the state go to 30? Does anybody go beyond 30 years? You know?
Many districts in the state go further than we. Greenville goes to at least 30. I believe the superintendent recently told me they go to 31. And their starting salaries for teachers are higher than ours.
So this isn't a question, this is just comment, but I understand where Dr. is coming from. I really want to see us do something across the board, because we need to be competitive, extremely competitive for our teachers. I'm interested, I've heard from some teachers lately who were talking about retiring as soon as they're eligible because we weren't doing the additional steps. So I think hopefully that will motivate people to stay, and clearly our, what did you say, senior teachers or more longer serving teachers are potentially people who were in those categories this year to be more at risk for COVID. Not completely, but they could have been. So I'd just like to see us do something across the board.
Yes, sir, you said there were 2 positions or some positions that were kind of open in reference to the, ESSER. Tell me what position per se and how they're being broadcasted so that people are able to, monitor.
So there, in my division, there are 2 positions. One is a newly created position of deputy CFO. And which I gave the board on that a few weeks ago. And then the second one is a job title, but essentially financial analyst or budget analyst. That is a person whose responsibility is to manage funds in the district. And so if there's additional funds coming in, that's the funds that we got to have someone to manage those funds. And I'm sorry, and the way they are advertised is through the normal HR process where you post positions.
They've been posted already.
Deputy CFO, the financial analyst, I'm going to ask.
So, I, as far as the board goes, I'll defer to either one. I mean, I think the big thing here is, number one, our teachers are making over 100% market, and I know that our raises in the first 5 years far outpace Greenville. They start big, but they don't raise them for 3 years, except for retirement. So it's really, half dozen one way, 60 others, talking $5 million for one and $5 million for the second one. But I think the big push here is that we've got to get the, salary schedule to go through. That's huge. That's the big push that we need to take out of here. So I'll defer to the board on whether they want to do the 95 with a COLA or 98, but I am committed that we've got to go to 30 with the staff. That's what I'd like to see the most.
Any other questions? All right, if there are any follow-up questions, we do ask that you please submit those questions, again, to the budget. Mr. Kennedy, thank you, for your presentation. Then, to, budget, one-shot session. We'll here, until that, and are we doing starting at 1:45? Is that possible?
More than 10 minutes. Yeah, let's do 10 minutes.
All right, let's do 1:50. We'll begin, at 1:50 sharp.
Thanks for coming. Oh, we're trying to get a water. I've been hoarding it.
Shame on you.
Shame on me, sure. Although Eric has some down there that looks like it's the same stuff.
All right.
Good. Ready? Okay. Yes, sir. I am calling to order the June 14th Committee of the Whole meeting. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? So I have a motion, can somebody, a motion from Reverend Mack and a second. Lauren, that was a second. A second from Ms. Charteris.
Oh.
Everybody else, please vote.
Sorry.
We're voting to approve the agenda. Ms. Green and Scopes. And,
Is that not working today?
it looks like that is not working today. Okay, so that motion passes. That screen, hold on. That screen is not working, so if somebody, if it can potentially work, great. If not, we'll look at these. So I'll let y'all, somebody who knows better about that will look at that.
Did it just turn off, Miss Darby?
So is voting closed or can I change mine to yes?
Oh, you can change it.
I'll change it to yes.
Okay, how about Ms. Green? Do you want to? Okay, so please add Ms. Green and Ms. Coates for voting to approve the agenda. All right, thank you, guys. The next item on the agenda is 2C, and this is a presentation from Mr. Louis Porche, who's the lead community representative for the Lincoln High School repurposing project. So welcome, Mr. Porche. We look forward to hearing from you. We do have had your presentation, video presentation, and we looked at that.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to finally get to bring you up to speed on what we have been working on since 2016, when we first found out after looking at the news report declaring that Lincoln would be closed. I, like other graduates, I graduated in '74, went through the various emotional experiences with that loss. The nostalgia and all that. So I got up from my den, went into my office and prayed and asked God, what should I do? He said, remember what you learned at Lincoln? Write. You're a writer. And so after I got through several drafts of basically just expressing my emotions, I finally got to realize the purpose behind the journey. And so what we did was we looked at the history of the school and recognize the significance of preserving the history with regard to LGBTQ people. That is the fundamental foundation of the work. And then from there, we were led to look at the possible uses of the building, not just as a community center, which it will be, but we wanted to be a comprehensive facility that would solve problems that were systemic in the Black community, not only in Charleston County, but our direction was geared toward the I-95 corridor. And which is primarily rural, and unfortunately it has gained the moniker of corridor of shame. So with that in mind, we recognize the fact that they can have presented the opportunity to create a model that could not only celebrate our LGBTQ cultural heritage, preserve it, to enrich the culture, to provide a space for local artists and community education programs. All of that is in the plan, but also to be a model that can be duplicated along the corridor and assist in rural community development. That is the main purpose behind the Lincoln Regional Center, along with, of course, Gullah Beach Reservation. Now, to just make sure that there's a complete absence of illusion, this particular idea requires the purchase of Lincoln. We got to buy the facility. It was the plan from the beginning, and it still is the plan. Just want to put that out there so we'll know where we stand. Now we're at the middle of year 5, and we anticipate by the time our anniversary date in November, the 5-year anniversary, we will be in a position to go ahead and seal that objective. We were ahead of schedule in our development. We were actually a year ahead of schedule, but COVID came and that great unpleasantness set everybody back, and but not us. Since we were ahead of schedule, now we're on schedule. So with that in mind, for the sake of time, I'm just going to have a brief presentation to give you a thumbnail sketch of what we're all about. And if you would, direct your attention to the screen. The vision is the realization of a thriving Gullah American society. What is Gullah American? Next slide, please. Gullah Americans are the 21st century Americans of African descent who live within the South Carolina region of the Gullah Beach Cultural Heritage Corridor. Next slide, please. The mission is to transform the retired Lincoln High School into a multifunctional regional community facility. Note that phrase, regional community facility dedicated to the preservation and appreciation of the history and culture of the LGBTQ people of South Carolina and the southeastern coastal region of the United States. Next slide, please. Our ultimate goal is to raise the standard of living of the local people by creating a space that not only encourages cultural appreciation, but also provides for the advancement of multi-generational socioeconomic prosperity. And we do that through the aggressive development of individual and collective enterprises. I want to pause right there and introduce to say something about that. Because of the scope of the vision, we recognize that another entity needs to be created, a business, an LLC. I know for the past 4 years, I have been working toward developing the stakeholders and business relationships to that end. As a result, the group is called the Renaissance 21 Group of South Carolina. And the regional headquarters for that group will be also housed at the Lincoln Regional Center. This group is an LLC, and the prime directive is specifically rural community development. And so with that in mind, let's go to the next slide for the sake of time. And let me offer the site functions. basically the site functions are primarily these. Sustainable, let me see if this is, go to the next slide, please. Yes, primary functions. Primary functions are as follows. These are just some of the initial functions once we launch. It's a lot larger than this, but these will give you an idea. Sustainable natural resource projects, and this will come in the form of, we have organic farming co-op in mind, we have commercial industrial farming in mind. Most of these initiatives have the goal of cultural appreciation, community education, or creation of new jobs, economic growth through the creation of new industry. And these are our motivating factors. So the first thing is sustainable natural resources, and that's going to be largely agricultural, and we have a solar power initiative. So we will be not only providing services in these areas, but we will be training individuals from the community, particularly young people, to venture into the agricultural business and in our solar power initiative. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Then we have continuing education satellite programs. The Lincoln space, of course, will be available for satellites like as of from Trident Technical College, South Carolina State University, Clemson, etc. We want to have Lincoln to be a place where these colleges can set up offices so that students can come and have their initial courses taken right there before they move on. The site will also provide corporate offices, as I said before. The main corporate office will be the headquarters of these Renaissance 21 through South Carolina and other agencies that may want to have an office there. And we also have entrepreneurial training and development and microenterprising. The Joseph Business School is our model, and we hope to plug it in there. It was created by Dr. Bill Winston, Chicago. It is a 9-month course. It's an international accredited course, and it trains people who want to start businesses and bring them up to speed in 21st century business practices for best results, and also those who have already started businesses. This course will be vital to bring them to 21st century competitive functioning. And so that is a big deal at this facility. Culturally, we have the Adult Family Genealogy and Research Department. We have a genealogy research person, and this is very, very important so far as the culture is concerned. Many of our families are very interested in tracking our family tree, but also working with the genealogy department, we have a legal team that we're developing that will handle items such as heirs property resolution. These kinds of things are very important to our community because if we go for obvious reasons, we'll spend a lot of time on that. We'll wait that Q&A. And of course, we have creative arts development and athletic and vocational training programs. The band room and media department will be transformed into the Lionel M. Thomas School of Music and Fine Arts. The late Lionel M. Thomas was our band director. It's an exceptional individual, and the contributions that he made into the lives of myself and so many of us are immeasurable. And so here we have an opportunity. We have skilled musicians, and we're going to make this available to all the area churches to sponsor young people to come in and take formal piano lessons, voice training, all of that. And at the same time, be able to grow a new generation of creative people from the Gullah Geechee community, this time with a higher level of professionalism and with the utmost in the latest technology available to them. We have those things in mind. Now, the athletic and vocational programs, I'm going to talk on that. One of our partners with the Renaissance Cloning Group is the Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission. They have been carrying on the physical education programs and the athletic programs at Lincoln. They do a fantastic job. And we would like for them to continue because they are a very strong part of what we want to do. In fact, we have a summer program already ready to be launched, and we will talk about that in a minute. And we also are talking about building a swimming pool, which the community is badly in need of, and Parks and Recreation are 100% able to help us accomplish that. That's important. The Regional Gullah Geechee Heritage Gallery and Community Events Hall, our plans are to transform the cafeteria to be multi-purpose. This is the reason why we have to go purchase the property, because we have to do a great deal of remodeling, blow out the stage area, expand it, proper lighting in it, the theater, proper sound, all of that are part of the plan. And the actual hall itself will double as an art gallery where Gullah Geechee artists, visual artists will have their works on display. We will have jury competitions throughout the year, et cetera, and that's going to be very important with us. Jerry, the marine wildlife, the Department of Wildlife here in Charleston are agreed to help us create a wildlife gallery inside hall, and that's going to be great for field trips for the elementary children to come and learn about our wildlife and marine wildlife. And a specialized geriatric care facility. R21 is very, very concerned and very, very interested in developing specialized housing. We were working on a serious housing project in Almadal, Dakota, put that on hold with one of our colleagues. And but here we're looking at building rural assisted living facilities in our model community area. And my task is to identify property that will accomplish that, and I think I have in our case. And finally, on the list of things that we want to initially put forward is a Charleston County Sheriff's Department substation. We want that installed because we believe that we need not only to increase our law enforcement assets, but we want our young people to establish a relationship with law enforcement. And that's just all around good for our society. So with that, I can go on and on, but I yield now if you want to entertain whatever questions you might have. So.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth. That was really interesting. I think a couple of us are really aware of what you've been doing, but thanks for presenting that. Board members, we have about 15 minutes to ask questions. So does anybody have any questions of Mr. Forsyth about what he's trying to do at the old Lincoln School? Dr. Frazier, and then Ms. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth, for the presentation.
Thank you.
I applaud your community for coming together to revitalize that community. Of course, we understand the process that took place several years ago when they closed that school down. Anytime you close a school down in the community, you really devastate that community. So are you here today to ask that we donate that building to you? Since we took the school, the heart of that community away, what is the purpose of your presentation today? And what are you asking this board to do? Because I think that we owe this community more than we have taken out of it.
I appreciate that very much. And if you would ask me if I wanted the board to donate to the campus, that would be great, absolutely. But we, as I said, we are here in complete absence of illusion. This is also business. So yes, we believe that we deserve, the school was built in 1954 for Black students. Let's be real, the history is plain, it's very clear. It was built to keep Blacks away from whites, okay? But however, that means neither here nor there. This school represents a very important era as shown in the video online. It is the era of the historic Black public schools. If there were no historic Black public schools, there would not be any historic Black HBCUs. So you see the significant, and Lincoln is on a Rosenwald site, which makes it significantly historic for us. So we have here an opportunity to reestablish a relationship between the Black community and the school district that would be beneficial for both sides. Because just to be straight up honest with you, the Bellevue community has a skewed or negative perception of the way that it's been served. And we believe that has a variety of reasons, and we're not here to even argue that. We're here with solutions. If the district were to agree to partner with us and allow us to do what we need to do and be a partner with us, that would go a very long way in establishing a brand new paradigm between the community and the district. And so, yes, to answer your question, that would be very good. But if the district chooses, otherwise, we want to have another conversation and go ahead and get this done. Because this is year 5 and we are prepared. We want to launch officially November 16th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Ms. Porter, thank you again for your vision with this. And I guess my question was really the same as Dr. Frazier. What is your specific ask of the Charleston County School Board? I heard you say partnership, but obviously when you decided to come to talk to us, there's something that, tell us what you're looking for in terms of a partnership.
Okay.
That's number one, and the second one, what are you doing with your funding?
All right, I'm glad you asked, because I think we have the next slide with funding.
It missed the funding, but I just wondered how you were.
All right. To let me deal with the funding aspect of it, and this slide will explain. This is how we're structured as far as funding is concerned. Our funding sources are private and corporate stakeholders. As I mentioned before, the Renaissance 21 Group of South Carolina consists of private businesses whose of various concentrations that fit the needs of our with regards to our plan. Various private businesses that are interested in rural community development. We also have agencies that are on the federal, state, and local level that are ready to plug in to this organizational work. And of course, we have the educational institutions like Clemson and South Carolina State's 1890 program. Both of those are going to work with us with our agricultural initiatives. And we also have a Christian philanthropist in support, and that makes up R21. So we're prepared to do a lot of things, and thank you. And so if nothing else, what the district could do that would go a long way is to simply lease the school to us for $1, and then we will move forward in actually launching. And when we do launch, then we can work toward whatever else we agree upon with regard to the actual ownership of the property. But if we could acquire that lease right now, then that would actually accelerate our progress and put us actually back on schedule. Because like I said before, we were a year ahead of schedule, but COVID came. So if we could lease that property for $1, symbolic lease, that by itself will speak volumes to the community, and we'll be able to go ahead with the things that we already have planned. So this is the main thing that I would love to see happen today.
Ms. Coates? So thank you. This is very exciting. Have you gone north into Georgetown County? Because Sandy Island and that historical area will certainly benefit and most definitely should be a consideration. It shouldn't just be Lincoln South.
Next slide, please. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah.
This is the 95 corridor. This is our service area of focus. Once the model is created, we will establish life centers, which is basically duplicating the process. Our plan calls for 6 centers, each to service 3 counties, each in 18 counties. And that, when we go to the next slide, you'll notice something. That is a map of the Gulf Beach Cultural Heritage Corridor. The blue dot in the middle represents us. If you notice, in the Gulf Beach Cultural Heritage Corridor, half of the 95 corridor is included. Okay, those are the heritage as a partner with the Gulf Beach Corridor Commission. Right now, we are looking on, our agenda calls for the development of all that region, which includes Georgetown and all of the corridor assets, cultural assets in South Carolina along the coast. So yes, the Lincoln project will include every community along that corridor. And once we initiate our satellites in the 95 corridor, changing the name from corridor to shame to corridor of fame, then we want to expand our operations to go to the rural communities along the 4-state corridor.
Trevor Mack?
Thank you, Ms. Bourget. We mentioned a November 16th as a launch date. Am I hearing, is that a hardcore date, or is there an opportunity for further delay? And the reason I'm asking is because November 16th is the date that you cited, but also the other items that you have listed that you want to begin. So is there a specific entity that you've already joined forces with that is ready to go come November 16th, or is that a date, a target date of when you begin?
Many of our associates are ready to begin their particular work right now, and we're working towards that during the summer. If you have a copy, I think you're given a hard copy of the overall proposal. And in it, you'll see one of our initiatives, for instance, is the Light the Way project, where we intend to put solar power streetlights all the way down Highway 17 to lighten up the dark areas. These kinds of initiatives we plan to initiate over the summer. So there are some things that we will be doing off-site that we're already involved with. To answer your question, I mentioned the November date because that is officially kind of the anniversary date of the start of this thing. We asked for a 5-year moratorium. We asked that nothing be done with the property for 5 years. Unfortunately, with the sale of the vocational building, that left a pretty, it disturbed us because we had plans. We were going to put our indoor pool there, and we were going to put our vocational training there. And so while we were on the subject, that didn't happen, and I'm not going to look into that now because of the sake of time. But I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Dr. French?
So, this is to the board, that I don't understand, what the mechanisms are for trying to pursue something like this, and that's the information item today, but is it possible for us to direct staff to consider negotiating
Well, it is an information item, and I think now that we have this presentation, Mr. Burrow can update us on, what they've done research on. We have another piece of property up in McCallville, so I think they can give us answer some of our questions, and then we can decide how we want to proceed.
When would that happen, do you think?
I don't know, I think you could probably do that. I mean, you could probably get some input from staff in July. We can take a look at that. Is that feasible, Mr. Burrow, to just get some input from staff on?
In July.
In July, okay. So we could get back to Mr. Bourget. Yeah, by the beginning of August. Yeah. All right, we have a few more minutes. Any other questions?
I do have a request for while we're here. Charleston County Parks and Recreations, as I said, have been looking at the facility and doing a fantastic job. It was requested that they use these home economic building for the summer children's program, and we are 100% behind that. We would like for them to have the opportunity to do that so that there will be a seamless transition from school into their vacation summer programs. We are blessed to have a company out of Georgia, a school out of Georgia come forward and they will be donating laptops and iPads for all of our children that participate in that program. Sonia Gardner from PRC is our youth director, and she's an activities coordinator. And also, Joel Warren and I met along with Ms. Gardner about the possibility of eventually building a swimming pool for the community. So there are several things that we want to do there. We want to do some fact finding and different things like that, but we'd like for her to have the ability to use the home economic building. And also, now that we've had this meeting, we will be asking to have several community meetings between now and July, so that we can make the community up to speed on what we're doing, and that we can introduce them to all the volunteer programs that I have not had a chance to mention, but so that people can decide what they want to plug in and it gets started on a voluntary level, and get started organizing those things with the Alumni Association and other community organizations. So the two things we need is we need for PRC to be able to go ahead and utilize the home economic building for the children's summer school program, and just be mindful that we want to have a series of meetings at the facility where we can call the community together and introduce some of our initiatives to them.
Okay, all right, we have minutes and, yeah.
It sounds as if, Mr. Fortier is asking to utilize the building until there is an agreement between the district and this organization. And so time is of essence. So, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but can you possibly go ahead and vote so that he or they can utilize the facility to make progress?
We can't vote today because it's on the agenda as an information item, but we do have a facilities use agreement. And so like Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission, which sounds like y'all had a great, that's been working really well there using the facility. Mr. Fortier's organization, I mean, he can go through Mr. Roby's department and they can, to request to utilize the building. And then we can get some information from staff and then decide how we want to move forward. I mean, is it something where, there's a number of different options to be able to move this project forward. So, but we can't take action on it today. We got to do a little bit more research. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you all, and we will see you soon.
We will see you soon, and we will be in touch. Thank you so much. All right, and the next item on our agenda is public comments. And I'm not sure if we have anybody in person, but I'll ask Ms. Waters. So we're supposed to have 2, 3 in person. One. So we will have one public comment in person, and once that has concluded, I'll read the online submission. So when you step to the microphone, please state your name.
Sure. Mike Elder.
Hello.
And my question is, what is the board's stance on critical race theory and teaching that to our kids?
So thank you for coming. This is unfortunately not a question and answer session. We are happy to hear your comments at this time.
Well, I really am here to find out what the board's idea on teaching critical race theory is.
Sure. So the way that we operate as a board, we have to take votes on positions. We're not allowed to have individual positions. And since that hasn't come up on the agenda yet, we don't actually have an official position as a board.
Okay, so how do I get it on the agenda to get your opinion on critical race theory?
Well, you wouldn't necessarily get it on the agenda. We would put it on the agenda when it becomes appropriate to do so. But we'd love to hear what your input is on it. I mean, please share that with us.
Well, I mean, my opinion is that I don't think we should be teaching our kids racism. I don't think we should be teaching them to victimize a certain group of people and ostracize another group of people. So I just wanted to get an idea of what the board thinks, because you guys are making the decisions on budgeting and, teaching our children, the curriculum. So that's really why I came here today. So when can I get that on the agenda to speak about that? Because that to me is important, and I hope that our community is too. I mean, it's happening national right now, and states like Florida have banned it, and
So I'm assuring you that our chief academic office will, as they study curriculums and outlines that are enforced, if that item come up for discussion, to be placed on our agenda to discuss, and we will do likewise and such, but at this time now, we're not, it's not listed as an item to discuss, so we do not have a formal community at this appropriate time.
okay. So can we put it on the next agenda? Because,
Again, as we engage in with the chief academic office, and issues along these items that item come up for discussion.
Okay.
And we place on the agenda for discussion, but right now, it's not listed.
Do I send a formal email to get it on the agenda, or what's the process in doing this?
You can send information in, to be addressed as such, and as it channels down, then we will address the items.
Channels down, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So we did receive 2 additional public comments via email. The first is from Michaela Brogdon. Good afternoon, my name is Michaela Brogdon, a graduate from Arkansas High School, and I would really like to understand how people's families are supposed to see them graduate. We are already outside on the field, so why is there still a ticket limit? Many schools have lifted the limits, and I just don't understand why y'all can't just lift it. I have a stepmother that is dying from brain cancer, and I'm not able to invite her to my graduation because you all will not lift the ticket limit. It is very hard having to choose between your family when you have over 8 siblings. It is outside, people will have masks on. It is a very big deal, so what is stopping y'all from lifting the ticket limit? Graduating high school is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and all your families should be able to be there. Please take this into consideration, and please, I'm begging you to lift the limit. It just isn't fair. The second comment comes from Jamie Meisner. CCSD leaders, please consider replacing FOSS or FOSS kits with new, more inspiring science program kits. Our teacher often uses FOSS kits for the disposables and nothing more. The containers stay stacked in the back of the classroom or hallways, waiting to be moved to the next school. This investment with some of the ESSER funds could benefit so many children and our staff. We are very thankful to science for saving us during these difficult times. We owe it to the next generation to have the strongest science and math programs possible. Excellent science programs and materials need to be found in every classroom, not just magnet programs. Thank you for your dedication to our students and teachers. You are truly appreciated. Sincerely, Jamie Meisner, CCSD parent. Ms. Darby, that concludes the public comment section.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is 4A, Superintendent's report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Maggie, thank you for displaying and advancing the slides today. We can get right into the second slide, which is the recent disease activity by county. As those slides are displayed, we're really thrilled to report that for the second week in a row, Charleston is low in every category. As we look at the following slide, we see the positive cases by week, and you can see the continued downward trajectory of positive cases in our schools. The next slide is one that Mr. Burley will cover with the board.
So before you, this slide shows where we stand with vaccinations for students. Over 1,300 for the 16-year-old, over halfway through the 12-year-old and above. We start the second dose of those tomorrow at our 7 regional sites. From a safe return perspective, as part of the ESSER 3 guidance, we need to turn in a safe restart plan by the 24th of June. It should incorporate most of the information that is in the current safe restart plan. We just need to reformat it, but it does give us an opportunity to consider things that we want to implement for summer, as well as things that we need to do before we start the fall year. Things have to be done before the first day of school. So from a summer perspective, The only item that we're considering for change is outside playground and recess time, giving students an opportunity to remove their masks. We're writing up guidance now, which will forward to all the summer programs that if 3-foot spacing is reached in the outside areas, masks will be permitted to be removed. We hope to have that guidance out in the next day or so. The rest of our protocols for summer programs will be similar to what we have in place right now. For school use, we are going to open up to long-term contracts for the summer. That primarily, in fact, it totally is related to the church use of our schools. We have more than 21 agreements that have been on hold since COVID. This will give us an opportunity to see that it is manageable to have other organizations in our buildings. We will do a cleaning after the use on Sundays for any summer programs that are back in school on Monday. Looking ahead to the next school year, a number of things have been out there. We've had discussions with DHEC as well as our MUSC professionals, and based on recent CDC guidance, based on the CDC, or based on the COVID community rates were extremely low, our school COVID rates were extremely low, and in working with those professionals, we're going to move ahead with applying the CDC guidance for spacing between seating. The guidance that came out in mid-May allows for 3-foot spacing between seats. We've maintained 6-foot spacing between seats unless we have plexiglass. We're not going to just move desk to move desk. We will only move desk where it's necessary for educational purposes, which will also allow educational items to be removed or returned to the classrooms that are desired by teachers and principals. Again, these are essential items. We're not looking at bringing things in that aren't needed for, absolutely needed for class in the fall. That work will begin after we do our summer cleaning. As far as plexiglass goes, we're looking at scheduling the removal of plexiglass to start this summer. We're going to be putting out a survey to our principals who will talk with their student, talk with their teacher, and the rest of their faculty, as well as SIC and PTAs, and determine where they want to sit in the rotation for removal of plexiglass. We know that there are certain communities that continue to rely on plexiglass and find it a confidence item to have in their schools. We'll put them at the end of the list. I expect the removal of plexiglass to last into the next school year, so it will not be completely removed this year. Athletics and field trips are two things that we are looking at, are starting to schedule for the fall. Athletics will actually begin scheduling and potentially have summer camps this year, but into next fall, we're allowing teachers in schools as well as the athletics to schedule those items as long as they comply with the COVID protocols, like transportation, number of students on buses, as well as any COVID protocols related to masks that are still in place. One of the items that's still pending, and that is when can we remove masks when we're in a space with a small number of individuals. We may be one of the last organizations around that do not have that protocol in place, and that's in part because there is guidance from CDC that says we shouldn't remove masks in schools, and so what we want to do as our schools are doing at this point, but as schools let out this summer, we're looking for opportunities to have groups meet that are individuals that are vaccinated without their masks on. The last thing I'll put out related to graduations, because there was a public comment. As I mentioned in the last board meeting, each student will be allowed 6 guests. Many schools have more than that. It's based on space available in our facilities. We have more than a 1,900 person seating capacity in the D4 Stadium, and that's what we're given to stall, and that resulted in six guests per graduate. That's where that stands right now. We are going to allow masks to be removed once guests are seated and the spacing is in place. So that's a little bit related to the graduation coming up. That's all that was.
Thank you. If we move to the next slide, then switching from the COVID update to the progress report that's due in June, the first thing we want to say is kudos to all of our school leaders, teachers, and supporting staff, both in the schools and here from the district, for completing an absolutely unbelievable year. It's been a terrible but wonderful year. There's been a lot of loss on multiple fronts, but our employees have responded with resilience and resolve to serve students. So I think they truly have demonstrated that students are the heart of our work. And the parents who've worked with us have, for the most part, been most considerate and courteous, kind, and patient as we've worked through multiple iterations of how to bring children back for in-person instruction. So congratulations to all who were involved, and thank you to the board for having the faith in our personnel to bring students back to school safely. So that's the first bullet point. On the year-long or quarterly update is 4 days to go. We've just about made it, and it's a huge celebratory moment. The second bullet point involves achievement data for this year. As you know, we've had 2 years of disruption in the state testing. So we will not have state testing data at all for last spring. This year's test data can be used at the school level. The state achievement test data can be used at the school level, at the individual student level, but districts aren't allowed to aggregate it and talk about how we did overall. So when we present data to you, we're going to mash it up. And if a student met ready on either SC Ready or the MAP test, we can report that to you, how many students appear to be ready if you look at one test or the other without revealing which test was which. So our data analysis team under the leadership of Bucky Roberts and Carolyn Belcher are going to do everything they can to give you as much data as we can possibly share, hopefully in July. The next item we're going to talk about includes the major initiatives from the mission critical actions, the board priorities, or we call them board directives. And there was a detailed handout in your packet that gave you an update on where we are with each of those priorities. There'll be a discussion about recommendations for one of the magnet schools a little bit later. For this coming year, I would signal, just for purposes of the large discussion, that we probably want to take a look at our academic magnet and School of the Arts choice procedures, and also take a look at our alternative schools. I think those are some areas we definitely want to look at. School of the Arts, magnet definitely, and Liberty Hill and Daniel Jenkins would be some programs I think the board will probably want us to focus on for next year, just revisiting to see if what we are doing is consistent with what we said our objectives were for the students who are served in those facilities. And that's not at all taking anything away from the amazing work that goes on in those schools every day. And then the board goals and priorities for the 21-22 school year, the 18 months that we all have left to serve together. The update was included in the board packet, but we did want to just highlight those slides because this is the first quarterly report. I think that the goals were approved by the board in the April timeframe, so June would be the time for the first quarterly report. So on the next slide, you see sort of how we thought about the indicator system. Blue would indicate that a goal has been substantially met. Green is progressing on track. Yellow, it's early stages or mixed progress. Orangish is not on track, and there are some minor issues that we feel we can address. Red is not on track, there are major issues, and we need to discuss the challenges and barriers with the board. White would indicate it's not started. So all of our goals at this point in time are in the yellow and green territory. The next slide would show the first of 2 slides that summarize the board goals. As you recall, there are 5 board goals. The first one has to do with achievement. The first goal is about the CCSD promise. That in early stages, the ad hoc committee is working on that. I think a great deal of initial work has been done, and I believe the ad hoc committee has some meetings coming right up on that. The second goal is about readiness K through 12. So those of you recall the last time you saw the goals document, the specific percentages of achievement we're missing. You notice in the detailed document that you have that all of that's been filled in now, as well as the work that's been done on each of these goals to date. The metrics are there and the overarching strategies are there for each of these goals. Acceleration schools, again, earlier mixed stages. The increased percentages of students who will achieve readiness in kindergarten is well on track. Successfully returning all of our students in person is progressing well on track. We go to the next slide. Third goal is about attracting, developing, rewarding talent. That's progressing on track. The retention of our teachers, progressing on track. Certainly the priority list for phase 5 building programs has been approved. The execution of the first wave of progress is in the early stages. Goal 5 had to do with communication, and in the first instance, increasing the number of stakeholders with more engaging is progressing on track. The second communication goal has to do with engaging so that people understand the current initiatives and give input for future direction, and that one is in early stages. And it's a nice segue into a slide that we added today in response to some questions we were getting from board members about planning for the education, elementary and secondary schools, emergency relief funds that came out under the American Recovery Plan. So last Wednesday and Thursday, we had two planning group sessions. And those sessions were primarily just to meet with individuals who were suggested by principals to give us ideas about how to get more widespread and authentic community involvement. We concentrated on schools that have a poverty index of 60% or more, because we want the priority funding for these, the priority expenditure for these funding to be focused on the students who are most negatively impacted by COVID, and of course, the students who are already negatively impacted before COVID for the most part. So in the agenda, we simply did an overview of what ESSER 3 involved using some of the same slides the board saw last time. We gave everyone in the group an opportunity to talk about their priorities from among the 15 areas of allowable expenditures. And then, as I said, we got discussion, we had discussion and elicited suggestions for how to involve parents and community members who deeply care about their children's education and their community schools, but who often are left out of the conversation. So the next step will be to involve thousands of people in the opportunity to do exactly those things, to talk about what their priorities among the 15 funding options might be, and also to become involved in suggestions about how best to get their neighbors engaged. So we talked there a little bit about what is happening this week. A website will be set up. One board member asked that we share the recordings of those meetings from last week. We'll be happy to do that. I think we'll probably put that on the spot on our website, that anyone who wants to know where we are in terms of getting input for ESSER funding could go. We're not at all, and we're not close to the point of making recommendations for expenditures of those funds. We're just getting input on what people think the greatest needs are and the priorities are. So also this week we'll start doing random calls to parents of the schools, again, especially focusing on those schools where children were most negatively impacted by COVID. To ask them specifically, how's your child doing? What could we do to help your child, and what could we do to help you? So that we make every effort to hear from people who might not otherwise engage online, but who will respond if we make the extra effort to reach out to them. So, that concludes the superintendent's report. I simply wanted to bring the board up to date on those important items. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any questions? Okay. Ms. Coates?
So, can we get just 1 through 15 in our Friday update, 15 allowable areas of spending?
Yes, those will be in the slides that you'll receive tomorrow.
They'll be there listed 1 through 15 in the summary format. So we can see it.
And there will also be, if it hasn't gone out yet, an email to all constituent board members and to this board of trustees asking you these same questions to rank the 15 so that we know what the board's priorities are. And also your suggestions about how to reach the individuals in your groups.
And you said that you're not allowed to aggregate and present to the board the SC state testing results?
That's our understanding of a memo we received a couple of weeks ago from the State Department, that they're not going to aggregate and release results because.
Okay, so they're not going to aggregate and release the results.
And they have asked us not to do
Just
so
to do
either.
your own work that you typically do.
Yes, because the testing, some places were in the midst of testing when the mask mandate was undone immediately. And if students were learning virtually, they must come to school in person to test, and many parents aren't comfortable with that. So there's not a way to have a comparison set that is like the comparison set of previous years.
So will we get the map data? What are you going to present to us to show us whether we got the education or any growth in education in this year? Where do we get that data from?
I will, when the data are presented, I know that presenting it will give you the specifics, but right now the thinking is that we're happy to show you the map. That those belong to the district. We can show you the map scores. Our thought was, because we're working on the promise, which is how many kids are ready at what stage, that if a child happened not to make readiness on math, but they showed readiness on SC ready, we would represent to you that child met ready. Because we mix those two together. So we haven't violated what the state told us to do, but we've given the students a benefit of the doubt and given the board accurate information. To the extent that we have.
I think we're all particularly interested in finding out what the true growth is from this year. And Dr. Melcher had mentioned at the last meeting specifically that she's using that data for the Mary Ford because we want to know how much additional supports we need to put into the kids leaving there because they haven't had the full benefit of a early childhood education. So we'll see the map growth.
You will definitely. It is possible to present math separate, so that's really the best tool we have for showing growth.
That's
The readiness may be a mashup of it.
That's fine.
Does that make sense?
Right, I just wanted to see that the board's going to get math from that.
That is my understanding of the latest discussion that Ms. Belcher and Ms. Roberts have had.
Let's get Ms. Basford as well, which will be the early childhood. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Ms. Christie?
Question, how many, I know there were about 90 people that were invited to the SC meeting, you know how many people came?
About 30 participated each day. We gave 2 different times when people could participate, and about 30 participated in each session.
Okay, so our next item on.
I have a question.
Oh, Dr. Frazier?
Yes. My question is about, and this is on page 14, when we talked about the small women and non-business enterprise participation in phase 5 capital building program. What are we going to do about the MBE? Part of what we had been discussing earlier. Are we just going to ignore that and just concentrate on SWD?
It's my understanding that those goals can be set when the disparity study is completed. Mr. Kennedy, would that be accurate?
Oh, yeah, okay. Did you hear the answer?
I'm just trying to find out why we're waiting and how is that going to impact, phase 5? Mr. Kennedy?
Yes. So I've taken to the Audit Finance Committee a proposal to do this disparity study. They have agreed to that, presented to the board. There's some people with the school board on that, I believe. We have gone out with RFP. We have assembled a team, including someone from the outside to review the proposals that came in. We have selected, once they do this proposal, is part of it, the selection. So the team has selected a vendor that we again presented to the Finance Committee, I believe. And we have issued a contract, at least for this portion, for this current year, using capital funds for this current fiscal year. So that work is about ready to get started, if it hasn't started already. And then as Dr. Parker indicated, once the disparity study results come back, then we will have definitive hard data to show what the opportunities are and what the actual goals would be appropriate, actual goals would be appropriate goals. In the meantime, before the study is completed, staff is still working to increase the MDE portion of the capital program. So, for instance, in phase 5, the construction management firm has been selected. That is an African American firm, which is Brownstone. They are the construction management firm. They will manage the first, I believe it's the first, all of the projects within the first wave, which the board has approved the first wave. So that work is underway, and it will be further refined in goals, et cetera. And once we have the results of the disparity study, so two things: the disparity study results whenever they come in, and the staff and the district's push to make sure that we have more inclusion with the program in front of the disparity study.
And Cummings will still be involved in the process, is that correct?
So Cummings is involved in current phase 4. So we are not construction management from phase 5.
Right, phase 4 runs through 2022. So phase 4, both for construction and capital maintenance, is through 2022.
Okay, the next.
I have to just be clear. I just want to make sure that you're not saying, because we have not put out the RFP yet for phase 5, right? So we approved wave 1 for design, but we have not approved wave 1 for construction management.
So phase one, wave 1 for construction management was awarded already to Brownstone, which is an African American firm. That was not done through an RFP, that was done because state certified minority firms who are able to get an award through that contract, to that vendor. And that vendor then is managing all of the construction management firm. But we have not issued any RFPs for construction, just for construction management.
That answer your question, Roma?
Yeah, I follow like first.
Does anybody else have a first question? All right, then let's go.
So I hear you saying something that we don't typically say in the capital projects.
we typically award a construction management company for the capital program, not for a wave. And then we implement waves. So is Brownstone our construction management company for the capital program? Or just these, or are you going to be doing construction management companies for each wave?
Brownstone is handling the capital program for construction for wave one,
Just wave one?
design and construction. The decision on program management for capital maintenance in the last two waves has not been decided.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on unless somebody stops me to strategic education. Ms. Burger.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. So we have a lot of items to run through today. First on the agenda is item 5A, North Charleston High School School Innovation Application, and we have Mr. Darby and Mr. Stroud via Zoom.
They do not plan to make a presentation. They're available to answer questions if you need them.
Okay, all right, I did not realize that, I apologize. Do we have any questions? Tell me the strawberry one, and I'm just kidding. Them on the spot. Okay.
So why is the district saying that, we should technically make this a schools of innovation? That's not necessary for the waivers. What changed? I mean, and the new law doesn't require North Charleston High School to become a school of innovation for you to get those waivers. We approved that plan. That plan is ready. I don't quite understand why you're asking us to make it a schools of innovation.
As I understand it, the State Department of Education cannot approve the one waiver on teacher certification. The other waivers are approved, but a waiver on teacher certification. Mr. Darby gave an example of someone who has been an actor for many years who has a 4-year degree but not certified to teach drama. But that employment of that individual is not permitted unless a waiver for certification is approved. This is the same type of waiver, as you're aware, that charter schools have it in their law. The State Department cannot approve that waiver unless a school is designated as a school of innovation.
So, first off, the good news is all the other waivers have been approved.
That's my understanding, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, in order for them to get the teacher certification waiver approved, they have to be designated as a school of innovation.
Yes, ma'am.
This application doesn't meet that standard at this point in time, and I don't want to put a hiccup in North Charleston's movement forward. We've approved that plan, we want it to go. Can we keep moving forward and work on this one?
They're asking you to, they're not asking for all of the aspects of a school of innovation. They're asking simply to maintain the request that they put in front of the board earlier, and then in the application for the state for the school of innovation, they will have to comply with those components of the state. That application is ready to go, but before they can submit it, it's a technicality. They need this board's approval, but they are not asking for all of the permissive elements of a school of innovation. They're not asking, for example, to have the entire budget turned over to them. Right now, the only thing they need is approval of the school of innovation designations that they can ask for the waiver for certification. That's the only thing they're asking for right now.
Go ahead, please.
Does anybody else have any questions? Dr. French?
Yeah, when we talked about this in March, it appeared that there were different mechanisms for asking for allowances for teacher certification. So there are waivers. Are you saying that the State Department of Ed no longer will accept any waiver requests for teacher certification. And along with that, I thought that if we had specific certifications that we wanted to weigh, we could go to the State Department of Ed and request that for certain applicants.
So it's really complicated, and I'm giving simplistic answers. There are some certification waivers that can be granted by the State Department. This specific type of certification waiver that charter schools are permitted, it cannot be granted by the State Department to a regular school unless the school is a school of innovation.
That has changed since March. Because in March, it was told us it was an avenue that we could explore.
Our understanding of what was happening in March is different from what actually happened. So the School of Innovation legislation had not been passed yet, and it's an extraordinarily complex process of dealing with all the different teacher certifications. So we thought that we could have the waiver approved. The message back from the State Department is that they cannot approve the waiver without evidence that this board is willing for North Charleston to be designated as a school of innovation.
Any additional questions? Ms. Waters?
So, as the motion is written in the, in board docs, I want to go ahead and make a motion because I want to make a little bit of a tweak. If you don't mind, sir, please. So I move that we approve the North Charleston High School to qualify as a school of innovation per the proposal unanimously approved by the board on March 22nd, 2021, with the condition that the board receives biannual reports to monitor impact and assess opportunities to expand and enrich program offerings. And I can answer any questions or provide clarification, but you give a second.
I think that's a good idea. I think that was included in fact, that's in the motion that was approved in March, right?
And well, and honestly, the main, my main point of this is I'm actually happy to have North Charleston, become a school of innovation, especially if that's what, the leadership at the school wants. But I do want to make sure that these waivers are a starting point because I think that there's some awesome things that could come out of this designation. So I'd love for us to continue to look for opportunities to provide even further enrichment at the school.
Do we have any additional follow-up questions?
So what is the term of the school of innovation if we got to designate that? How many years? And can we modify that?
I believe by law it's 5 years.
Is it possible to modify it to ask for renewal at some point? For instance, we don't have a policy in place for this process. And it might be nice to say, to consider the idea of, once we get your semi-annual reports for the next year, we're gonna be asking you to resubmit, make sure that we follow the process that we have decided is the best process. With that, I'm not sure if I said, I guess I could ask Ms. Waters if we can have a friendly amendment to have a relook at the School of Innovation after we have a process in place for applying for that.
Considering the timing of this and what Mr. Garber needs to do, I do not want to accept that.
Ms. Herbert? Ms. Herbert? Based on what I've heard staff say, as we talked about this, as much as we ask to get updates and, I'm sure we will have an opportunity, we're gonna get the 2 updates, but I'm sure if there's something pressing that we need to change at some point, we'll be able to do that. I hope we would only be changing to add components to it, but I don't think we need to add that now. If we ask the board what we want to know, and we'll continue to monitor.
There's also our policy would allow us to change whatever we need at any point that we determine it was not working. So I'm just supporting that. We do have that authority as the board, per policy.
I have a legal question. So, actually, mine is a legal question. That's why we're taking the big one.
That's a legal question. So, go ahead.
Okay, well, so then mine's
But then I want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
I think the law is pretty clear that it says you have to have a final draft, that they can't change anything after today's vote, and that we have to have a financial plan. My fear is, this isn't the final draft. We don't have a financial plan. I want him to keep moving, and I want him to continue to have the flexibility, because this draft says we may do this or something else. We may do this or shift as necessary. And while I have no problem doing whatever we need to do to get him the, because this is one of the most important waivers to me personally, was this one. But I fear that we are opening the door for other schools to come to us and say, we don't have to have all the stuff that this law requires, because you gave it to another school without requiring them to have it. And that's my fear. I don't have any problem with the program. We approved it unanimously. We've never changed it. We never even asked to see the final draft. We discussed that. But at this point, if you put this in this law, two things: it's not meeting the standard, and it's opening the door for other schools to say, we don't have to meet the standard for you to bring it forward. And I just get a little worried about that. This has nothing to do with the program we approved, because it should continue moving forward separate of whatever this is in front of us today. But this thing today says that if you approve a school of innovation law, we can make no changes to that plan without bringing it to us with 2/3 vote approval. I just don't want to put us in a pigeonhole. I understand the desperate need to get this teacher certification, but I want him to continue to have the flexibility to finish his plan as he sees fit. And I don't know that we can keep riding both sides of the fence.
I guess I'm confused on where's the disconnect on what we're telling them to do and what they can't. I don't see a legal question.
So maybe it wasn't a legal question, it was interpretation of the law they're referencing that says we need to do this today.
Right. And Ms. Kenny and Dr. Postlewaite, I'm sure y'all have had some communications with the State Department and understand what is necessary for us to go forward to have this thing approved.
I think we do. The school is not asking for the financial autonomy.
Right.
And so that part of the plan will be necessary.
Under any circumstances.
The board's budget isn't, the school is willing to stay under the district's authority for the financial expenditures. They simply want this waiver at this point. And if the board's motion wants to stipulate that, that's fine. I do think there's a difference also between a school that is an early adapter of an opportunity and those that might come after the board officially puts a policy in place.
Right, I agree.
So then I guess my question directly to you is, will he have the opportunity to finish this plan and make changes without coming back to us?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think that there are any changes they want to make that wouldn't have been contemplated in the plan that's in front of the board.
Motion and second, Dr. Grant.
Considering that everything except for the teacher certification waiver has been granted, they can move forward on a lot. Why is it that we have to do this with 2 votes today? Why can't we wait 2 weeks for the next board meeting?
Because it takes about 60 days between the time we submit something to the State Department and the time it goes to the state board. And North Charleston High School needs an answer just as quickly as possible regarding hiring decisions for this coming year. That's the urgency today. I regret that we're in this situation, that none of us could have understood in March quite what the legislation would say or how the interpretations would fall. Certainly none of us understood this particular part of the teacher certification interpretations.
I'll ask quickly, Mr. Scriven or Mr. Darby, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
I think everything's been covered, and the point that we aren't asking for anything different from the last time, and I think everything's good.
We have a motion from Ms. Waters and a second from Ms. Darby. We'll call for a vote. Let's see the motion.
And this one,
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Fraser?
I guess this might be a board question. Can we go back and ask the question in the superintendent's report, or we have to move forward?
Motion carries.
On that.
Yeah, can you just say?
Okay, the names will be extension of Ms. Coakley and Dr. French voted no.
Did that pass 6 votes?
6 out of 9, yeah.
Thank you.
So may I ask that we actually get a copy of the final plan?
Absolutely.
Next up is item 5B, the Health Advisory Committee bylaw revision.
I move to approve the recommended action.
Second.
Dr. French.
And I take you out.
Do what's necessary.
One skin girl, one short sleeve. That motion passes. Next up is item 5C, new CC honor courses.
Move to approve.
Second.
May I ask a question?
Okay.
So this says, if approved, these courses will be available at high schools to be offered at the honors level. Can we get some more specificity? Are these going to be offered at all high schools? Because we really struggle in Charleston County because the zip code does determine what courses you get to take. So can we get some more specificity on this? I mean, I approve it, I agree it needs to happen, but I want to know where it is and why it won't be somewhere else. I think our public deserves to know that.
Yes, ma'am. Buffy Roberts will answer the question. Mr. Rich Gordon is also on as those who would be the.
So it's pretty simple. Will it be in every high school?
We cannot determine that at this time. It will be available to be offered at any high school that wanted to offer those courses based on student interest and, of course, those resources that were available. We can let you know what courses.
No, that's fine. That's it. So then that decision, you've made it available to every high school, and then it becomes the principal leadership team's decision whether to offer it or not.
Yes, ma'am. And also to those centers of advanced study, they would have the ability to offer those courses as well.
Thank you.
Any, Dr. Brennan?
Just as a follow-up, if there's not enough interest in a specific school to open class there, for students to be able to opportunity to participate virtually.
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for that right now, but we can certainly find out. Again, one of the ways that we're able to offer courses like that and make it available to a larger number of students in more than one high school is through those centers of advanced study. So that's a great way for us to be able to do that.
Any additional questions? Next up is item 5D.
I move to approve the instructional materials recommended for use in Charleston County School District by the textbook selection committee for the subjects in the recommendation and justification document.
Second.
Any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Are these new textbooks for existing courses and curriculum, or new textbooks equal to curriculum?
New textbooks for existing courses, I believe. Ms. Bryant, can you confirm that? Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Last up is item 5. Approve services for city. Second.
Yeah, but why are we changing it? Why was the priority listing that was presented to us in January being changed?
I initiated this request, looking for revision approval.
Just so I understand, it looks like for the second part, you're trying to encourage, or trying to help students who are already attending these schools have a priority.
Any additional questions?
I just, I opposed it when it came out the first time. It wasn't given to us as an option to vote on in January, but the priority was manager. Manager is prioritizing D20. And, so they had that priority, but again, I see that the district is continuing to take those options away from students in certain zip codes without replacing them. And that's just a philosophical issue I have with reducing access to these magnet schools to certain geographical areas.
We're not doing that. We're not going to do that.
You added a priority, you dropped one to number 4. Yes, sir.
But it has not.
Question, just a thought that, in terms of the D20 students attending D20 schools, I'm trying to understand, if I understand correctly, you said that because students attending D20 schools historically are, lower, higher poverty than students of color, so that could be an opportunity to get more students of color into.
That's correct.
I just wanted to clarify.
And I want to make sure, because I agree with Ms. Waters, that the prior one was that anybody done for an 80% or higher poverty school, so it wasn't, we captured that. My issue is that we're not capturing that group, because of minority students, we need more representation. Then my issue is that North Charleston students are continuing to not have those options.
So, I guess the third priority, it maybe I just want to make sure if this is true, are all D20 schools high poverty? That could change. So do we need to add that?
These priorities will be assessed on an annual basis. Okay. So when that does change, it does.
And I think that we discussed this, but will we try to make sure that we recruit all students who qualify in these zones, not just the, the 3-minute crop?
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Garvey?
Okay, other, board committees, audit and finance, Ms. Green or Ms. Kennedy.
The information, of course, there, the audit and finance committee, there are 5 action items and 4 completion items that we, voting on.
Ms. Green, could you speak into your microphone, please? That's okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
There are 5 action items and 4 information items from the audit and finance committee. That's in your board packet that we will be acting on at the regular board meeting on the 28th. If anybody has any questions in the meantime, you can contact,
Okay. Anybody have any questions about any of those action items from Mr. Kennedy? That's great.
I just want to, I had attended the meeting and I thought it was very interesting. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like the, one thing that came up during this, the ISD steering committee report was that they had a very, very difficult time hiring, an IT person for security, work because our salaries aren't competitive. And I thought that was a, very compelling when we were also looking at the second reading of the budget.
Okay, the other item is policy FF, naming of facilities. French, do you want to do that, or?
Sure. So, what's being recommended to us from the committee at the Lino High School community is to approve the volleyball court at Lino High School be named the Alexis Glover Court.
So moved.
Second. And, Cindy, any questions? I have a good question. Hopefully, I'm not sure why we are, we've had 2 or 3 of these recently. I'm just not sure why we're naming, every small part of our buildings in this way. Is this a long time tradition? And
I can answer that if you want. I can. Okay. All right. Go.
All right, Ms. Taylor's coming to committee.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. French, thank you for that question. So typically when communities or recommenders come together and they'd like to name a part of a building, we convene this process. We do typically have several portions of buildings named annually. So this isn't something that's unusual. This typically happens every year.
Yes, Ms. Taylor.
So, Ms. Taylor, we had some concerns recently about the lack of diversity among our staff and retired staff versus who gets something named after them. There was going to be an inventory of sorts. Has that ever occurred? Do we know where we are on that, or we just, my fear is we're continuing down a road that could cause issues later in the fact that we're not representing the full diversity of our community for these names.
Yes, ma'am. So if I understand your question, you're asking whether or not we have compiled a list of all of the schools or parts of schools that are named after someone. Yes, ma'am, we have done that.
Can that be presented to us?
Yes, ma'am, we can put that in the board brief.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? All right, time for vote. Thank you, the motion carries. I'll return the meeting back to Ms. Darby.
All right, we're now in item 7, other business, and Ms. Taylor, can you give us an update on the legislative update?
I sure can. Thank you. Last week, the General Assembly reconvened and the House debated and passed its version of the FY 2020 General Appropriations Bill. Funding for public education within the House passed version and the Senate passed version back in April saw a few minor differences in funding, but for the biggest ticket items such as base student costs and teacher salary increase, they were on the same page. The House passed version included a new proviso that prohibits school districts from requiring masks at any of its facilities. The Senate non-concurred with or rejected the House version, and the budget will head to a conference committee meeting tomorrow, June 14th. The House and Senate, today. The House and Senate have approved 3 members from their bodies to work out the differences in their respective versions. Both the House and Senate will reconvene next Monday, June 21st, to vote on adopting that conference committee report or not. I'm making this report in the absence of Daryl Campbell. He's actually traveling. He's about 30 minutes away. I'm not sure if he's gotten on the Zoom yet, but he sent me the written report. And if there are any questions that we can answer following this report, I'll be sure to get with Mr. Campbell and we'll get those answered for you. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any questions about that? And Erica will follow up and get that question answered to Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Dr. Brent?
I was a little confused about the one about the face mask. Has that progressed at all, or do we need to be concerned about that?
I'll need to follow up based on what it says, and I'll reread it again. The House passed version of the budget included a new proviso that prohibits school districts from requiring face masks at any of its facilities. So I have, yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Hello?
Yep, you on there?
Yes, I am. I'm so sorry. This is Brian Butler in the absence of Daryl Campbell. I apologize. I'm about 20 minutes away, and I'm so sorry I wasn't able to attend in person just quite yet. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So thank you, and we hate that you're in traffic, and feel free to turn around if you want to while you're talking to us. But the one question you may have heard from Dr. French was the question about the action in the budget about prohibiting face masks. But that's a budget item, so if that passed and was reconciled passed, then that wouldn't go into effect until July 1st anyway. Is that correct? Or please explain that one for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the proviso that Erica just stated is a part of the House passed version, and so the Senate has already non-concurred with the House version of the budget, and they will go to budget conference committee tomorrow. Sorry about that, Erica. Tomorrow, June 15th. And they will work out their differences in each other's version of the budget, and then they will reconvene on the 21st with a more formalized budget that they will vote to agree upon in their separate bodies next Monday. And so if that proviso stands, it will stand in the budget conference committee to take place tomorrow.
Does that answer your question, Dr. French?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Butler? Or any just support for him as he is driving on I-26?
Again, I apologize.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you so much for getting on the Zoom while you're driving.
No problem.
Okay, so the next item is determining our agenda items, moving to potential consent. So somebody can help me with this. I think we have our item 5A, the North Charleston High School, that's going to the special call meeting agenda tonight, to hopefully we'll take at least a 5-minute break, to, because of timing for that, and then these items 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E, and 6B will all go to the consent agenda.
I voted against E, and I would ask it to be on the regular agenda.
Okay, so then it's 5B, 5C, 5D, and 6B to go to the potential consent. All right, does that sound right? Oh, Dr. French, sorry.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, so item 5A will not be on consent agenda, it would just be this. And it will also be considered at.
Correct.
Okay.
5A is going to this, right now, after this, to the special call meeting. Item 5B, 5C, 5D, and 6B will go, we'll make a motion. And so I'll make a motion for those items to go to the potential consent agenda.
We have to make a motion.
Well, I think one of them is not unanimous, so we can vote it to potential consent, so, yeah. If they're unanimous, they automatically go. If they're not unanimous, we can vote it.
I'd like to take a motion.
Okay, and with those items, 5B, 5C, 5D, and 6D? Yes? Okay. So, yeah. I made a motion too, but.
Yeah, wait.
So,
I'd like to keep 5B on consent.
oh, you want to keep 5B on consent? Okay. So I'm going to withdraw my motion. So you make your motion.
A motion to move 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E, and 6B to the consent agenda.
Second. Okay, just clarification, 5A is going to the special call meeting. So can we clarify that it's going to be 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E, and 6E? Okay. All right.
Three times fast.
So we have a motion and a second for items 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E, and 6D to go to the potential consent agenda for our board meeting on June 28th. We have a motion and a second. Yes, that's what Laura's motion is 5E as well.
So you're removing 5A from that motion?
Yes, we've removed 5A. So one more time, everybody listen. The motion is to move item 5B, Health Advisory Committee Violation, 5C, new CTE honors courses, 5D, textbook additions, 5E, youth seating priority, and item 6B, policy academic facilities to the potential consent for the June board meeting. We have a motion and a second.
So, all I would ask is that, and I understand the reasoning behind it, but if it is at least on the regular agenda, we can take a pause. I'm not, clearly it's going to pass. I just wanted to see if we would have an opportunity to have it on the regular agenda, so it's not just approved before we're all sitting in our seats, and we're just settling in to do the approval of the agenda. I don't intend to do anything dramatic. I just feel like these are things that should be discussed in the public forum as often as possible.
Well, we'll see what happens on this motion, and you have the opportunity to make that motion again at our meeting. All right, so let's please vote.
I'd just like to say on the record that I voted the way that I did because I feel that we should provide that deference if there's not unanimous votes on an item. Yeah, that was pretty slow here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that motion passes. The next item on the agenda is upcoming meetings. Reverend Matt, can you just give us the details on the board workshop? That is this Wednesday, real quick.
Yeah, so we will be at the, in, County Park, hall. By now, we should have been interviewed by one of the team members, one of the facilitators to gather your responses to questions that have been laid out, by one of the trainings that was by one of the plugins that was submitted by the facilitator. That response to those questions will be crafted into the workshop. There's an open agenda, so there's not a printed agenda outlined. It will craft the training based upon the responses that were outlined. We will have an opportunity to dive into discussions. I know there was a concern about the executive item that was listed as a potential, and that is only as a placeholder, just in the event that our discussions get into the area that will allow us to talk about things that should be done in executive session, since it's an open forum. So there is not an outline executive session item to discuss, but it's just a placeholder so that we can be covered in detail. So that is the game plan from noon till 4:30.
Okay, and you had an opportunity to order lunch, so make sure you've done that, because that's very important. You all know how much we enjoy food. Yep, Dr. French?
I guess I'm just concerned that the open session section of the meeting just doesn't have any agenda at all. And when we properly notice our meetings, it seems like we should have an agenda.
Yeah, so we can definitely put together something. We can have a welcome, we can have an introduction, and then we can go into our workshop facilitated by Agent Graybill, and we can have a program. So I can put together, we can put together an item session. That is the outline.
Next, on June 28th, is our, for everybody knows that in July, we are planning the whole meeting and our board meeting the same day. So, a motion to adjourn the meeting. Take a, leave the 5 minute break.
We will reconvene in 3:45.
I don't see a problem with starting an executive session ahead of that, but can we make sure we have the beginning of the open session start about 4:45? I'm sorry?
It's 3:30. So that's an hour and 10 minutes, or an hour and.
I agree, but we have publicly noticed it was going to happen around 4:45, and I think out of deference to the public, it's fair to start about that time of the open session.
So we'll decide 3:45, we'll try to come close to the open session.
that item 3D be removed from the agenda and considered at the board meeting on June 28th.
Okay. Add to that? Hearing none, and then motion for adoption of the agenda.
For the second time, so moved.
Me.
Mr. Darby made the motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Green.
If I may,
Yes.
I don't particularly understand how we got, where we got with North Charleston, we're trying to fit the square peg into a round hole. But I don't see the value, just so you know, I don't see the value of delaying the vote that's going to pass when it's a necessary thing. That's why I support that motion for the agenda.
Okay, let me just acknowledge today being Flag Day. Today, we recognize Flag Day in the United States. Flag Day is celebrated on June 14th and commemorates the adoption of the flag of the United States on June 14th, 1777. By resolution of the Second Continental Congress, the flag resolution stated, resolved that the flag of the 13 United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the union be 13 stars, white and blue field representing a new constellation. On May 30th, 1916, President William Wilson issued a presidential proclamation establishing a national Flag Day on June 14th. Many Americans celebrate Flag Day by displaying the red, white, and the blue in front of homes and businesses. Let me also note that it is a celebration as well in the month of June by Juneteenth, also referred to as a Freedom Day. Liberation Day is the longest running African American holiday celebrating the emancipation of African Americans who have been enslaved in the United States. It kicks off the day here in the Low Country and Will culminate with a Freedom Festival on Saturday, June 19th, the official day of celebration. The events are planned all week and designed to magnify an often overlooked moment in African American history. Events are designed to empower, celebrate, and educate with relevant history, arts, and culture. As we celebrate this annual day of remembrance, I hope and encourage you all to reflect on its true meaning. Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of the slavery in the United States. In addition to marking a date of major significance in American history, Juneteenth has always been both a day of remembrance and an opportunity for African Americans to honor their history and celebrate Black culture. Also like to note an act of condolences. We are saddened to share that Ainsley Augusta Horn, a third grade student who attended Styles Park Elementary School, unexpectedly passed away on June 6, 2021. 9-year-old Ainsley is the daughter of Karen and Wade Horn. I also regretfully share that the CCSD family just lost one of our longtime members, Mr. Cornelius Richardson, who passed away last Friday. Mr. Richardson served over 40 years in several capacities as principal of Jane Edwards, a teacher coach of Longton High School, and the agriculture and horticultural teacher at Potgate Middle School and St. John's High School. He retired from the district June 30th, 1981. Mr. Richardson was 95 years old and an outstanding, well-known figure throughout our community. Please join me in prayer as we ask the Lord to grant that we may hold dear the memory of his servant Ainsley, neither bitter nor for what we have lost nor in regret of the past, but always in hope of the eternal kingdom where you will bring us together again. We ask this in Jesus' name, in Christ's sake. Amen. At this time, I will have special recognition.
Reverend Matt, May we move special recognition until after executive session? Some of our recipients are in transition from school to home.
Okay,
Thank you.
at this time now, we'll convene into executive session, consider items. So we're going to turn this line for.
After executive session.
All right, you're unmuted now.
Okay, we're now back into open session.
I move that we take a short recess.
Is there a second on this?
Second.
All right. We will, take a 10-minute, recess and we'll reconvene at 4. All in favor, I know I said aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
All opposed, motion passed. We'll reconvene at 4.
If anybody,
Yes, sir. We are unmuted.
You know,
We're all set.
now we're turning back to open session. Item, 3B, on the agenda. North Charleston High School school renovation application.
Yep, so, or do you want to make that motion? Sure.
So, yeah, well, I have it, I'm not really sure, because I don't see it. I think
You have the motion to make.
Yeah, yeah, well, I've got it straight. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I've got to get into my.
So, call, point of technology issue. For some reason, I can't get it in.
All right. Give it 1 second to, hold on 1 second.
I did.
So you can just refresh your, computers,
Yours is on.
still like 3B, North Charleston High School, school renovation application. Do you have, do we have a motion?
I do, yes, sir. I've got the same motion that was approved at the committee of the whole.
Okay,
Yes, okay, so, for this section, I move that we approve North Charleston High School to qualify as a school of innovation, per the proposal unanimously approved by the board on March 22nd, 2021, with the condition that the board receive biannual reports to monitor impact and assess opportunities to expand and enrich program offerings.
okay, so second to that motion.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Ward, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, message please catch the roll. Hopefully it's not present. Okay, item 4A.
I'd like to make a motion that we uphold the decision of the constituent board.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Dr. French. Are there any questions? Hearing none, message please catch the vote. Monitor up there working so I can see what my votes look like, and where, what those numbers over there. All right, that motion passed. Next item on the item 4B, addition to constituent board vacancy recommendation.
I'd like to make a motion that we, name Jennifer Bilbro as the vacant seat on the District 2 constituent board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Coates. Are there any questions? Hearing none, message please catch the vote. Motion passes. Item 4C, Health Advisory Committee. Okay,
Catherine Teason for the community member, Brian Stonecipher for the teacher member, and Jeremy Rutledge to continue as the party member for the health advisory committee.
Second.
moved by Dr. French, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions?
Stonecipher.
Stonecipher, Stonecipher.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask you to please cast your vote. And motion passes. At this time, now we'll have special recognition, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Reverend Mag, Vice Chair Waters, Board of Trustee members, Dr. Coastaway. During the spring sports season, Charleston County School District schools combined to win a total of 15 team, individual, and relay South Carolina High School League state championships. With the help of athletics directors and coaches, the Division of Strategy and Communications produced a highlight video to honor those most deserving and talented CCSD athletic state champions. Please join us now to view the highlight video in recognition of these outstanding coaches, athletes, and programs.
During the spring sports season, Charleston County School District schools combined to win a total of 15 team, individual, and relay South Carolina High School League state championships. We start with soccer and the Wando girls collecting their 11th state championship, the first since 2014, with a 2-1 overtime victory over JL Man in the 5A finals. Kaylee Bosak scored the eventual game-winning goal in the second overtime period, ending JL Man's run as 3-time defending state champs. Gwen Kaiser scored the Warriors' other goal in the second half. Head coach Shannon Champ now has 7 state titles in 16 years in charge of the program. The rest of the Wando roster includes Zaria Askew, Emma Kaiser, and Taylor Reed as seniors. Juniors Caroline Brinson, Macy Brooks, Morgan DeBarros, Alyssa Graham, Tatum Maxwell, Julia McKellar, Allie Siegel, Anna Shepard, Caroline Richvalski, Grace Waite, and Kennedy Walker. The sophomores, Zoe Carpenter and Lennon Lighthouser. And freshmen, Kylie Sino, E.J. Dillard, Ansley Dowdy, Ashton Dowdy, and Finley Dyvick. The assistant coach is Alex Dunnigan, and Wando finished the year with a 16-1 record. The James Island Charter Girls completed their best season in program history with a 1-0 victory over Catawba Ridge in the 4A state title match. This is their first ever state championship. Anchored by a solid defense, Caroline Arnold recorded a shutout in goal, the team's 16th shutout of the year. Kayla McGrary scored the lone goal of the contest midway through the second half. The Trojans completed 2021 with a 22-1 mark. The rest of the team includes Haley Boyd, Olivia Briggs, Ella Chanthabane, Ellie Davis, Clara Etnoyer, Matson Floyd, Maggie Gardner, Van Haygood, Ollery Hodge, Taylor Hertow, Mac Lair, Caitlin Overlaw, Camille Perna, Hayden Roppy, Lily Ray, Gabby Redmond, Daphne Robinson, Emmy Ross, Kate Ross, Uriah Sloan, Alexis Spivey, Marley Walker, and India Wyman. The head coach is Kim Cohn, and the assistant coaches are Greg Webster, Greg Bennett, Jenna Sneed, and Brian Garvin. James Island Charter boys soccer program also collected their first ever state title this year. The Trojans held off Eastside 1-0 in the 4A championship. Aiden Worthington scored the only goal of the match just over 10 minutes into the second half. The Trojans did not allow a goal in the entire 2021 postseason, and they only gave up a total of 7 the entire year. James Island finished its historic season with a 16-1-1 record. The championship roster also includes Grayson Padone, Ben Garrett, Grant Smith, Jackson Taylor, Matthew Freedy, Holden Silverman, Ethan Cooper, Travis Samatov, Daniel Barney, Tyler Pettipiece, Cade Reynolds, Michael Caton, Teddy Sturm, Unai Sancho, Levin Massadet, Charles Maxwell, Eli Boyce, Nathan Leader, Ethan Lucky, Alden Alea, Keegan Lynn, Daniel Busby, and Amar Muhammad. Todd Robinson serves as the head coach, and the assistants are Gerard Walker, Michael Rentz, Ed Carson, and Adrian Fernandez. Moving to track and field, James Island Charter girls squad dominated the 4A state meet and brought home their first team state title since 2014, beating second place Greenville by 13 points. The Trojans collected 6 individual and relay state championships as well. Hannah Vroon finished first in both the 1600-meter race with a school record time of 4 minutes and 58.24 seconds and won the 3200-meter race. Avery Belk won the 800-meter race with a school record time of 2 minutes, 14.59 seconds. Tia Lucas captured the high jump title at 5 feet 2 inches. The 4x400-meter relay team of Avery Belk, Tia Lucas, Terry Admore, and Hannah Vroon won the title with a time of 3 minutes and 56.57 seconds. That is a school record. And the 4x800-meter relay team of MK Huddleston, Terry Admore, Avery Belk, and Hannah Vroon picked up the gold. Additional team members for the Trojans are Megan Castles, Anna Sophia Cruz, Monica Green, Anastasia Major, and Kylie Stevens. Joe Eshelman is the head coach, and Yvonne White, Jeremy Morris, Emily Crocker, Michaela Stanley, Chris Covert, and Carson Stewart are the assistant coaches. Brett Jones, an 8th grader on St. John's High School's track and field team, won 2 individual state titles at the 1A state meet. Jones, who attends the Montessori Community School, captured the championship in the javelin with a throw of 126 feet and 2 inches, nearly 34 feet better than the runner-up in the event. That distance would have been good enough to win the 5A, 3A, and 2A titles as well, and finished second in the 4A meet. She also brought home the title in the discus with a toss of 103 feet, 3 inches. And at the 5A level, 3 student athletes from Wando brought home state championships. Sophie Heinold captured the state title in the girls' 400-meter hurdles. Hannah Tagami won the girls' crown in the pole vault. She was one of 4 warriors competing in the pole vault state finals. And Caleb Walker set a state record in the javelin with a throw of 194 feet, 2 inches, almost 22 feet better than second place, on his way to winning the boys' title in that event. Congratulations to all of our CCSD student athletes capturing state titles in the spring sports season.
They're on Zoom watching now. Thank you. Tonight, we'd also like to recognize Charleston County School District School of the Arts senior Enrique Boyd, who won the 2021 6th District Congressional Art Competition. Each spring, the Congressional Institute sponsors a nationwide high school visual art competition to recognize and encourage artistic talent in the nation. Since the Artistic Discovery Competition began in 1982, more than 650,000 high school students have participated. As an award recipient, Enrique's work will be displayed in the U.S. Capitol as part of the National Art Exhibition. Boyd's piece is called Cedric. Unfortunately, Enrique and his family were unable to join us tonight, but SOA Principal Dr. Shannon Cook is here, and we'd like to thank her for standing in for Enrique and his family. Thank you, Dr. Cook. Next, we'd like to recognize West Ashley High School's counseling program that's met the criteria to become a recognized ASCA model program by the American School Counselor Association. Joining us and watching is Principal Ryan Comeback and West Ashley's Director of School Counseling to receive this recognition on behalf of the school. This school's designation is valid for 5 years through the 2025-2026 school year and involves a 12-step application process using at least one academic year's worth of data to demonstrate a commitment to delivering data-informed school counseling. The application process looks at the school's vision, mission, and school counseling program goals, and the ASCA mindsets and behaviors for student success, annual agreement, advisory council calendars, school counseling core curriculum action plan and lessons, school counseling core curriculum results report, small group responsive services, closing the gap results report, and a program evaluation reflection. West Ashley will also be recognized at the National ASCA 2021 School Counseling Conference that will be held in Las Vegas, July. Please congratulate West Ashley High School and thank you, Principal Comeback. And before the night ends, we'd like to honor our top 5 teachers of the year, our Teachers of the Year finalists. So on May 5th, 2021, Dr. Postlewaite surprised 5 unsuspecting teachers by announcing their selection to the top 5 finalists for the 2021 Teacher of the Year. The top 5 finalists are, and as I call their names, if you please raise your hand and wave, Coach Candace Baer. She's a PE teacher from Latson Elementary School. Coach Adam A.J. Barnes, he's a social studies teacher from West Ashley High School. Abby Beth, she's a 3rd grade teacher from James B. Edwards Elementary School. Catherine Johnston, she's a PLTW engineering teacher from the East Cooper Center for Advanced Studies. Katie Clapp, she's a 3rd grade teacher from St. Andrews School of Math and Science. One of these finalists will be named the 2021-2022 Teacher of the Year in August. We want to thank our current Teacher of the Year, Lakivia Mills, for doing a fantastic job representing all teachers for CCSD, and Lakivia is currently a teacher at St. John's High School. We want to congratulate our top 5 and Reverend Mack. This concludes our special recognition for this evening. Thank you.
Let's give all of our honorees another round of applause. I believe that this concludes.
Oh, you're on.
Thank you. I believe this concludes our.
Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
We just conclude our minutes. We're not in motion.